All the guests go on, there's 4 of them, to say, yes, we're slaves, but it's a good thing. One guy criticizes the private Federal Reserve. It's all a fraud. Just like the Federal Reserve is private, has a quasi-governmental power, it's a consortium. That's what the New World Order is. Okay? They exempt themselves. Big Pharma is out now admitting that they knew H1N1 was going to give people narcolepsy, all different types of brain problems, all sorts of seizures, death, and they're getting government liability protection. Just like GMO has got a rider in a bill I'm going to cover later briefly, to give all their new crops where they can plant any crop they want without authorization of anybody, not even corrupt FDA anymore. And if you get sick from it, you can't sue them. That's what this is. This is diplomatic immunity for the criminal class. And now they've got the military gearing up for war with us. And the public's calling in and sending me emails going, well, I know, I'm in the military, Alex. We are getting ready for martial law because things are going to collapse. We have to. Yeah, but it was premeditated. It's not like things are collapsing and now we have to have the military on the streets. The military's now doing Jaws of Life all over the country for PR, doing mosquito eradication. Look at this photo up at Infowars.com of them chemtrailing people over Florida. I mean, pretty soon the military is going to have to fill potholes. This is what a society looks like when it falls. And again, Dan Fite will give you his website. If you're watching on Prisonplanet.tv, you can go over these documents. If not, go to Infowars.com or to his site, hongpong.com, where he's got these PDFs and government documents linked right there. Since we talked Sunday, Dan, you're back with us here. Break down in generality what you think's happening here, or if you disagree with anything I've said, before you get into some of these latest data dumps that are up on your site.
Yeah, good to be with you, Alex. I just wanted to lead off with a little bit of positive news. Out in San Francisco, one of our colleagues, David, with Indie Bay or Bay Area Indie Media, just won a $160,000 lawsuit settlement from the authorities there because they seized his camera looking for evidence against protesters. And it is a federal law that you cannot seize a journalist's unpublished work product without a subpoena. You need something more than a warrant. You need a subpoena. And the film that we made about the 2008 Republican National Convention called Terrorizing Dissent, at one point a SWAT team surrounded a group of journalists at a house of a guy named Mike Whalen. Again, they didn't come up with a subpoena to seize their journalist work product, but at least we have one settlement proving that even if you're an independent volunteer journalist, you have that right. And so I think that's a little bit of positive news. And actually, that house during the RNC, Mike Whalen's house, I just got to throw this in, he was a distributor of vegetarian, vegan literature, and so that's one of these cases where he won a lawsuit settlement as well. And it seems like they were using package tracking, like they were inside like the FedEx or UPS type system to sort of see he was receiving packages, and then they went after him. A small example of how these things work, but we have to make sure in the process of fighting for this stuff that we fight for our rights as independent journalists as well. I just wanted to throw that in quickly right away. But yeah, essentially, this sort of new discussion that we're having, a really excellent website called publicintelligence.net posted a military police training handbook for something called civil disturbance operations, which is an area of sort of doctrine and tactics that seems to be expanding domestically. It's been used in the previous eras when the National Guard, for example, was deployed in Los Angeles. And so this new document shows how warrantless searches without, talk of warrants are described and planned out looking for dissidents/snipers. It talks about detention facilities operated domestically by these MPs. And those facilities are heavily guarded and armed. And they say there will be no warning shots fired if they think you're a threat. So this document sort of lays out at kind of the grunt level the fact that unauthorized gatherings are forbidden. There's very few references to anything about constitutional constitutional rights in this. Nothing about warrants, nothing about the Fourth Amendment, nothing about the First Amendment. It talks about, seizing firearms, seizing, liquor and private property and that kind of thing. So it was a troubling document, but it fit into a larger set of documents, and it's very handy. Public Intelligence has just published a bunch more about how this domestic military system works. And so what I found earlier was a file left out on a U.S. Army Corps of Engineer web server in 2010 about something called the National Level Exercise 2011 New Madrid Seismic Zone earthquake exercise that Homeland Security and FEMA and the military were running. And inside there were notes about sort of a planning level called Con Plan 3502, or U.S. Northern Command Concept of Operations Plan 3502. And that's called Civil Disturbance Operations. And so that plan is classified secret. And, I don't think it's appropriate in an open and democratic society for there to be these secret classified plans. Also, Public Intelligence just posted the new 2011 version of a domestic operational law handbook. I had previously looked at the 2010 version, and both of these have a ton of citations that show you exactly how, in Chapter 5, which is called Civil Disturbance Operations, they show you how Con Plan 3502 is in fact the major planning framework, and it is classified secret, and it is a replacement for the old plan from the 20th century called Garden Plot, which was the basis of the Rex 84 exercise and the Reagan administration on Oliver North and so forth. So Garden Plot was the old plan, and then when they created Northcom in 2002 as a military counterpart to Homeland Security, they came up with this, this Con Plan 3502 plan. So when Northcom is activated, like say there's a big national disaster, an earthquake, they use a broad plan called Con Plan 3501, Defense Support of Civil Authorities, or DSCA. So that's their number one plan. And then their number two plan is Con Plan 3502, Civil Disturbance Operations. So with the new MP training document that we just got, we have a very good sense. That document dates from 2006, kind of the Hurricane Katrina era. We saw how in Hurricane Katrina, when the military was deployed, they were taking people's firearms without warrants, searching without warrants, things of that nature. And so we see that when the military hits the streets of the United States, even if it's not a full martial law scenario, or if it's a national special security event, which is a complex subject that we should really look at very carefully, it's very important to have kind of an idea of these documents so you sort of know what to expect. You can kind of get pointed questions out there, and we can sort of plant the flag on concrete facts that we know about this system. And I think that's a much more useful way to proceed. It gives us a good foundation to move forward politically and start challenging this stuff. I don't think it's appropriate that secret plans like Con Plan 3502 exist. Also, the new Domestic Operational Law Handbook talks about another secret directive put down by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and that document is also classified secret, and it specifies like which sections of the military can use which uses of force domestically. So that's secret, although some little annex of it isn't secret. Another example to check out that is available is the Northcom plan for influenza or other pandemics, which is called Con Plan 3591. And if you Google around for that, you can find a very large, partially declassified plan, which is hosted on Northcom's Northcom.mil's Freedom of Information Act section.
Tell you what, stay there. Imagine the unclassified stuff, gun confiscation, they call it gun evacuation, everything else, re-education camps. I mean, this is a lot of fun. Let me ask you a question. I mean, here's an example. Here's what's come in just the last 10 minutes. LIPC weapon combines lasers and lightning. The new military system they want to give to police, it's a plasma laser gun that blows your car up. I mean, it's Buck Rogers. It's not little wimpy lasers. It's stuff that will blow the engine of your car instantly. Boom. Here's another one, CBS. New Homeland Security laser scanner reads people at molecular level. At 160 feet away, it's going to be in malls everywhere, scanning everyone, shooting you. Believe me, you're getting hit with some radiation there. And bouncing back, and it says if you're on drugs, adrenaline, everything about you. This is the Pandora's box with all these agencies and companies with the license plate. I saw a cop with a license plate reader in Westlake 2 days ago, driving down the road, violently turn in front of me, almost hitting the car in front of me to chase somebody and pull him over because the license plate reader went off. He had license plate reading cameras on him. Hey, why don't you go scan international bankers? Why don't you go? I mean, look, there's crooks right there. How about you go arrest the folks with drones illegally attacking countries all over the world? Oh, no, 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 no. You're going to henpeck us to death with all this. And I'm going to say it again and go back to our guest. This is a short segment, long segment coming up. Investigative journalist Dan Fight. This is Pandora's box. We're going to rue the day with all of this because they're now gearing the military up and getting on a war-fighting front and footing against us. And now going, well, it is needed for collapse. And the Secretary of the Army was out a month ago going, we need to be in every city and, you know, and yeah, deal in law enforcement and call in airstrikes. And they're just getting everybody ready. And for what? I want to get into the bio release or flu release and those documents that I know tie into the Emergency Centers Establishment Act and the Model States Health Emergency Powers Act, forced inoculation, all that's admitted in that document. I haven't looked at the one you're mentioning, the new one. There's so many. But briefly, in the time we have, Dan Fight, why do you think, because you agreed Sunday, they're accelerating this times 50. Why do you think they're accelerating all this right now? And where do you think this is headed right now?
Well, you know, I think, yeah, in some sense, you know, the war is coming home. These years of war are causing these military-industrial corporations to kind of import their technology back into local governments. Local governments don't really have the revenue to buy these things, so they, you know, use freshly created Federal Reserve notes and federal grant programs, such as the Bureau of Justice Assistance and the DOJ, or the Department of Homeland Security Urban Area Security Initiative that just got an enormous, you know, truck or, you know, battle wagon for UC Berkeley. So I think like there's a real erosion of public space. I think there's this notion that as the kind of corporate ideology moves forward, the space to be a citizen, the space to dissent, to disagree, to oppose the interests of powerful corporations that are getting themselves labeled as critical infrastructure and key resource sectors, which can include everything from banks to everybody else. They're kind of saying that it's CIKR, that's in a lot of these plans too, that essentially puts the Army on the hook to defend the people running CIKR businesses. So overall, we see a displacement of the traditional, you know, liberal freedoms that we're used to thinking of. I've also, you know, been involved with the Occupy Wall Street movement since it started. I helped kind of work with the live stream media people as, you know, a remote producer to kind of help get things rolling. And so I saw at a really up close experience right in front of seeing how not only did a huge protest movement sweep across the United States that was really, you know, opposing this corporatist, aggressive ideology that's harming everybody's standard of living, but also we see that the same kind of policing that usually we only saw at things like national special security events and that kind of thing has now been spreading to cities across the country. I mean, we just saw, I think yesterday in Seattle, there was a SWAT raid and the police announced that they were looking for anarchist literature. And so the kind of things which were supposed to reserve for extreme circumstances have become more and more normalized. And so I don't know if that, you know, leads outright to a situation of collapse or martial law necessarily. However, you can clearly see a gradient developing, and you can clearly see that these kinds of things are set up and kind of tested and run along the gradient. And so if we get a good handle on these documents, if we understand things like Con Plan 3502, if we saw at the NATO summit, for example, in Chicago, the military said